back to part 2, conditional statements. In this part, we'll look at if statements, if-else statements, and if-else-if statements. Each one is a generalization of the previous. We'll also look at how to nest conditional statements. Code can be specified to execute or not based on some condition. If the condition holds, the code can execute. If the condition does not hold, the code will not execute. To do this, we use the keyword if. The condition is placed inside parentheses immediately following this keyword, and the code that we want to condition on the statement, the code block, is encapsulated in brackets. Here's an example. Here, if the value stored in the variable a is greater than 0, in other words positive, we'll print to the console a message saying that a is positive. Let's see this in action. Here I've set up a variable and set it equal to a value of -10. A is strictly greater than 0 will evaluate to false, in which case this code will not execute and nothing will be printed to the console. Changing the value of a to 0 will likewise result in no operation. However, changing it to a positive value, say +10, means that the condition will be satisfied, it'll evaluate to true, and the console will actually print something. An if-else statement allows you to write a similar condition, but instead of executing code or not executing code, you can choose one of two code blocks to execute. If the condition holds, code block A will execute. If the condition does not hold, code block B will execute. Exactly one of these code blocks will execute. Here you use the keywords if and else. Here's an example. If the Husker score, the value stored in the variable Husker score, is strictly less than the Miami score, then it'll print out Huskers lose. Else, it'll print out Huskers win. Let's see it in action. Here I've created variables Husker score and Miami score and set them equal to 40 and 10 respectively. Because the Husker score will be strictly greater than the Miami score, the second code block will execute and it'll print Huskers win. If we change the values so that Miami has a larger score, say 50, then it'll execute the first code block instead. Huskers lose. You can generalize this further by providing more than one condition. Here you use the keyword combination else if. The first condition among the many that you provide that evaluates to true is the only one that executes. At most one of the code blocks that you specify will execute. The final else block is optional, just as it was optional with the if statement. Here's an example in which we're handling ties now. If the Husker score is strictly less than the Miami score, then it'll print Hurricanes win. Otherwise, if the Miami score is less than the Husker score, then it'll print Huskers win. Otherwise, it will print let's go to overtime. Here we've checked two different conditions. The Husker score being strictly less than the Miami score, and the Miami score being strictly less than the Husker score. Let's take a look at this in action. Here I've created the variables as before, Husker score 10 and Miami score 20. Because the Husker score is strictly less than the Miami score, the first code block will execute, and it will print Hurricanes win. Let's change the values to reverse them. The Husker score is now 20 and the Miami score is now 10. And so the first condition will not be satisfied. It'll evaluate to false, in which case it'll skip to the next condition. Here the Miami score is strictly less than the Husker score, so it will evaluate to true and it'll print Huskers win. Finally, let's go ahead and see what happens in the event of a tie. If both values are 10, the first condition is not satisfied, it evaluates to false. So is the second condition. It evaluates to false because 10 is not strictly less than 10. And that leaves the third code block to execute. You can also nest statements within other statements. Here we have a full example. If a is strictly greater than 0, then the first code block, lines 2 through 6, will execute. Otherwise, the code block on line 8 will execute. If a is positive, then it makes yet another decision. If a divided by 2 has a remainder of 0, then it'll print out that a is a positive even number. Otherwise, it'll print out a is a positive odd number. Here the if-else statement from lines 2 through 6 are nested inside another if statement.